What's up, it's ENDYMION, and the saga surrounding Black Myth Wukong has reached new heights of both popularity as well as depravity, as you'll soon see. The game has been getting attacked by outlets like IGN, and now others have joined in on attacking Wukong's developer Game Science as well. Beyond this, the extortion controversy of Sweet Baby Inc. has also been exposed further, and I want to talk about why this is all happening. Wukong recently got a preview demo that a bunch of news websites got access to. It was a 2-hour demo featuring an early stage of the game's story, and generally speaking, based on what I was reading, none of these outlets, even IGN, who has been the biggest critic and hater of Wukong, can find anything wrong to say about the game's actual gameplay itself. They say that the game runs well, plays great, and feels like a Chinese mythological version of Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Which I think I speak for many when I say, take my money, Game Science. I want to play the game where I beat people up as the Monkey King right now. PC Gamer also got to preview the game, and generally speaking, their article was also very positive about the experience. Of course, they had to sneak in a little gotcha because game journalists are one big massive cabal of liberal weirdos. Amidst the PC Gamer article praising the game, they snuck this part in which reads, "You play as the Monkey King himself, Sun Wukong, taking on the world with his magic staff. It's only the second game by indie outfit Game Science, founded in 2014 by ex-Tencent devs. You might remember Game Science as a subject of a 2023 IGN report detailing a history of sexism from one of its founders, as well as a wider company culture of misogyny." The article then continues on as if nothing was even said and just goes back to talking about the actual game again. The inclusion of this sexist, misogynistic claim is just there so PC Gamer can virtue signal to their colleagues to let them know that they're one of the good ones. This also happened with IGN, who, like I said, praised the game, although the actual preview article was not written by the same journalist who wrote the hit piece against Game Science in 2023. That hit piece was written by Rebecca Valentine and Ki-Hoon Chan, and according to many readers, what IGN wrote in that hit piece about Wukong was actually mistranslated by those journalists, which I use that word lightly in this regard. Clearly, Ki-Hoon Chan was likely contracted by IGN to help with translations, and based on what was compiled, Rebecca Valentine used this to write her hit piece against Game Science, who allegedly hates women. Even though, yet again, there's absolutely no evidence of this claim showing this. What's hilarious is that Ki-Hoon Chan, who helped with that Wukong article, was recently complaining on Twitter that IGN has yet to actually pay them for their work on that article. They've since deleted their tweets, but some other users can be found replying to Chan's tweet with stuff like, "I'm so sorry this pathetic weirdo zeroed in on you, I hope it dies down and that you at least got paid for that piece." Hilarious that this user here, who's adequately called mentally chill, both virtue signals calling anyone who pushes back against IGN to be weirdos, but also admits that IGN hasn't paid the person for their work. Very nice playing both sides there, mentally chill, but it gets funnier with other replies like this. "I am so sorry, that guy is an effing loser, and frankly at this point you should be paid at least double for that article. I support you in any way, just shoot me a message, always here for you." Yet another person virtue signaling while also admitting that hey, maybe IGN isn't the savior of games journalism, which by the way, they aren't. Remember that their parent company Ziff Davis bought up like half of gaming journalism websites recently, so IGN's parent company can basically control the narrative of video games journalism pretty much across the board. So when I say you don't hate game journalists enough, I mean it. Then there was this tweet which was the delicious cherry on top that reads, "Wild they have all this energy screaming ethics but can't direct any of that at an executive or money man to demand fair pay, better conditions. That makes stuff better for everyone doing the work, plus those engaging with the results. I can't believe you're still waiting, it's messed up." And Andrea is right here. This is IGN, ladies and gentlemen, the website that consistently pushes for better working conditions in video games and advocating for game developers to unionize to avoid layoffs, and constantly promoting and pushing things like identity politics whenever they can, as often as they can as well. Yet they also don't pay people that work for them and even go as far as to ignore them for upwards of an entire year after an article was made. If IGN actually practiced what they preach, they would pay the person the money that they owe them. After all, we know they have plenty if their parent company can just buy up other websites on a whim. This is who IGN is. They are liars and have become full of political activists who hate the general gaming public. Circling back to that 2-hour preview article roundup, like I said, IGN also did one too. Although the preview was not done by Rebecca Valentine but another journalist named Mitchell, and honestly, if you read IGN's preview, it's basically what gaming journalism should be. They just talk about the game and what's in it, and then that's it. Of course, not allowing it to end there, Rebecca Valentine, the original writer of that article claiming Wukong's developers are sexist misogynists, decided to add their own column in the preview article. Here's what it said, and I quote, "Last year we published a comprehensive report on IGN detailing a number of sexist and inappropriate remarks made by multiple developers of Black Myth Wukong, including those in leadership roles at Game Science. As of the publication of this preview, Game Science has yet to provide any response or statement addressing our report or their past remarks. Like Mitchell, I had the opportunity to see Black Myth Wukong at Summer Games Fest, though my appointment was admittedly a little strange. I was told as a part of my invitation that Game Science would have a statement related to the reports of sexism. I arrived at the appointment and saw the game as planned, but when I asked for the promised statement, I was told by a PR representative, Game Science is focused on the demo during play days and will only answer questions related to gameplay. Mitchell's preview doesn't need my validation, but for what it's worth, I fully back everything he's written here. Black Myth Wukong looks like it'll be a great game. It's gorgeous with snappy combat, fantastic monster design, and some really interesting boss fights. It is also true that several of the people who are making it have made disparaging remarks about women and don't seem to be interested either in retracting their past statements or in supporting the numerous women who are being harassed in online conversations about Black Myth Wukong purely for expressing their discomfort with those statements. Both of these ideas can exist simultaneously. What audiences want to do about this conflict is ultimately their choice. One last note. I didn't see any women or femme-coded characters in the demo, and I was able to confirm from Game Science that there were none present in the section of the game presented to the press. There will be women in the final game, but for now it is impossible to really comment on whether or not the Game Science developers' expressed beliefs permeate Black Myth Wukong in a meaningful way." End quote. So what could have just been a normal "here's what the game's about" article ended up being turned into a virtue signaling slingfest of crap by Rebecca Valentine yet again. Not allowing her ego to take the blow, she decided to double down on everything she said, so let's dissect this all now. Firstly, Game Science doesn't owe you anything, Rebecca, or IGN for that matter. At this point, websites like yours and others simply exist to regurgitate the same talking points and news articles. It's hardly considered journalism anymore either, and mostly all of these websites feel like bizarro versions of Tumblr these days. Secondly, claiming that Game Science said they would give you an answer with no actual evidence of them saying that they would is also disingenuous. Especially since you say yourself that the PR representatives at this event told you that Game Science would only answer questions regarding the game itself. It seems more like, to me anyways, that you made up this claim in your head to push a narrative like you did with your previous IGN article. And likely, none of this actually happened, and instead you were simply invited to a press event for Wukong. You saw the game, likely asked your moronic questions, and the PR people looked at you like you're crazy and said, "Listen lady, we're just here to talk about the game, thanks. We already know your previous article with that other person, who you still haven't paid for their work by the way, was clearly mistranslated and was made in poor faith." The truth is that we know Western gaming journalism has for well over a decade now been very hostile and disingenuous when it comes to Eastern-made games. This would go back even into the early 2000s with stuff like X-Play, where they would make fun of Asian-made games or make statements like it's pretty good for a Japanese-made game or Chinese or any other. The truth is that the West, to some capacity, not all of them of course, but there's a club of Western journos and devs and so on that feel intimidated by the East. And I mean, who wouldn't be when they're making far superior games in the West for years now? Not to mention, 2024 alone has primarily been kept afloat by largely Asian-made games this year already. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Tekken 8, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, Persona 3 Reload, Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance, Dragon's Dogma 2, Black Myth Wukong soon, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree DLC which also drops soon, and later on this year too we have stuff like East Nordics and the next Trails game, to name just a few more to come. We also had Pal World and Stellar Blade, which have all come out this year alone, and this just proves my point greatly. that the gaming industry and the success it has been receiving in 2024 has almost primarily been achieved by Eastern developers and not Western ones. Of course, there are Western hits this year too, although when you compare them in quantity or quality to the Asian-made ones, it's really no contest. Not to mention when games like Sekiro and Elden Ring have both won Game of the Year at the Game Awards, beating out stuff like God of War Ragnarok, for example, and yeah, I would be salty too, I guess. But this just proves my point further. This is all a deliberate attack because the East will not fully accept the moronic demands of the West. We already know that Sweet Baby Inc. attempted to extort Game Science for consulting work by demanding $7 million up front to fix their game. When we already know that if it were to happen, Wukong would be ruined completely if Sweet Baby got their disgusting hands on the game. A game made by Chinese devs about Chinese mythology does not need to be consulted on by a bunch of woke, out-of-touch, insane morons who've done nothing but ruin games and close studios. Sweet Baby Inc. is the cancer of this industry, and I will not stop saying that because we all know it's true. We also know Sweet Baby's own employees have come after others trying to ruin their livelihoods and personal lives. From that Park Place we have this titled, Sweet Baby Inc. employee Chris Kindred allegedly contacts Smash JT's former employer to get him fired. Smash made a whole video about this and detailed what Chris Kindred, who by the way is the same person who originally tried to get Corbrutus Rambo's Sweet Baby Detected Steam Curator tool taken down originally too. So this Chris Kindred guy is the person who basically started Gamergate 2, I want you to know that. Here's what Smash JT had to say about Chris Kindred attempting to get him fired, and I quote, "He reached out to a company where I had worked for and said that I am harassing and have started a website collecting a non-white audience. I don't know, Chris, I think this is easily disprovable if you go to my website and see that there's nothing illegal even though you tried to get my website taken down and did for like 36 hours. There's nothing that's not public information, this is all readily apparent. A place of work of mine that I was at for like 3 years ago, okay, and these people, they're very busy people, they have professional jobs, they're working hard. Do some research before you start doing stuff like this, but you leave these messages and you think it's not going to get back to me. Maybe you thought it would be anonymous even though you left your name and your phone number, which is the same number you listed on the website, which is how I know it's you. I don't know what you were thinking and why you thought this was a good idea, but this is going to come back full force on you. You are the bad guy in this situation. You don't do stuff like this. I don't know how else to tell you this. You are trying to get people fired. You are proactively calling people, asking for them to call back, verifying employment status, verifying why they did things, asking about the website, talking about harassment and potential racism and how it's made for a non-white audience. You're trying to get people fired because you're trying to justify your position that does not need to exist in the video game industry." End quote. So you see, these are the people we're dealing with when it comes to Sweet Baby, which has plenty of defenders across the board in the games industry. And they are now attempting to get people who have families fired because they don't agree with them. What Smash JT did with his website collecting games journalists' names and such is not illegal because as a journalist you are legally obligated to give your full name when you write an article. Also, you can't exactly hide where you work if the article posted with your name on it is on the website which you obviously work at. So to say Chris Kindred worked for Sweet Baby Inc. is not illegal because they literally do work for them. It's like Alyssa Mercanti of Kotaku, she works there. She also tried this whole I want to fight everyone I disagree with narrative. Then a bunch of people came out and said they would fight Alyssa, and she of course backed down, went private and claimed everyone who attempted to accept her offer was somehow racist or sexist. Alyssa Mercanti is a living embodiment of that one meme where the girl is riding a bike and falls over and blames it on someone else. That's literally her to a T. What's also funny is that in the clip, which I'll show you, where Alyssa Mercanti vows that all of us are evil because we don't support Sweet Baby Inc. and all of this nonsense, Rebecca Valentine, yes the same one who wrote and attacked Black Myth Wukong, can be seen sitting in the very room. Here, watch.
What you really want?
I want people in the industry to be a little bit louder about people being mean to other people. And maybe say it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Maybe say we don't want you around if you're gonna be a
Yeah.
and hateful. And that the games industry is diverse naturally. Not because anyone's making them be diverse. Because the world is diverse, you stupid motherfucker. And if you have a problem with that, come fight me. Physically.
Has anyone taken you up on that yet?
No, because they're all
What's also funny is that Alyssa tagged giantbomb.com, another website, to this rant, and they hilariously enough untagged themselves from the post, which is just too funny and proves how pathetic these people really are. Also funny that Alyssa says that our side of the aisle are weak and pathetic, yet she retracted everything she said and refuses to own up to anything because that's what these people are in the end. They are all talk. These are the people who champion diversity regardless of how shoehorned or bad it is, and believe the more sweet babies, the more suicide squads, and more woke misfires that get made, the better. And they are angry that there are games out there refusing to bend the knee or give in to their insane moronic claims. Black Myth Wukong doesn't need to give into IGN or Kotaku because what happens always ends up happening. What I mean by this is that since IGN attempted to say Wukong is sexist and all of this, the game has since exploded in popularity and reach. It has now reached the top of Steam's bestsellers, although if you go check now, Wukong did get knocked down by Elden Ring's newest expansion. But I mean, come on, it's Elden Ring. The fact Wukong is being pre-ordered at even remotely a similar level is damn impressive. The Streisand effect is in full swing when it comes to Wukong, and this has yet again resulted in IGN failing to suppress and make another developer bend to their whims. And I think the most important lesson any game developer, publisher, and so on needs to realize when looking at this entire situation is if you reject these companies and instead just focus on delivering a fun game that is completely devoid of DEI crap, you will be set up for the rest of your life. I guarantee you that Stellar Blade's creator probably made so much money because of that game and rejecting the weirdos, the same will happen with Wukong too. Although, I have a feeling that Wukong will be a much bigger release than Stellar Blade, but this is also because the game is available at launch on PC, whereas Stellar Blade was PS5 only. For now anyways, I'm sure it'll come to PC in a year or two, but the point remains, what we're seeing in every major success story of 2024 is quite literally just games telling journalists to go screw themselves. Also, in case you missed this part, in that Rebecca Valentine column in IGN's 2-hour Wukong demo, she said another problem with the game was that it lacked female characters or femme-coded, which is just journalist talk for trans characters. And I just gotta say, Rebecca, you must have brain damage if you're trying to pull the woke identity politics angle on Black Myth Wukong of all games. I mean, firstly, it stars the Monkey King. Secondly, this is a game made in China by Chinese people, largely for Chinese players. In case you don't know, China's government has already passed laws where things like feminine men are banned from being depicted in their media. This has been in effect for a few years already, but basically, China's government said they are banning the depictions of effeminate men in order to tighten the control over the nation's society and enforce morality. The government there said it was to enforce a national rejuvenation so the government can control the public image of what a man or woman are in China. They've also made it to discourage ordinary people from being too attached to celebrities because China doesn't want their nation to become like the West pretty much. As the article says, broadcasters must resolutely put an end to sissy men and other abnormal aesthetics, the TV regulator said, using an insulting slang term for effeminate men, Niang Po, or literally girly guns. According to the report, China wants to dissuade the male populace from adopting the more effeminate look of other nations like South Korea. They've also made it so online influencers and celebrities do not promote wealth or luxurious lifestyles on social media either. So as you can see, within a culture like this, which is way different than the West in every conceivable way, the fact Rebecca Valentine is angry and upset that Wukong doesn't have femme-coded characters or whatever is because in a way, by law, Wukong can't have those things anyways. Plus, it's clear that game science wouldn't have these sorts of ideas in their games even if they wanted to. Because the game is again about a Monkey King fighting gods and monsters, why would they spend development time adding something like a trans character? It would only be done to make people like Rebecca happy, so they go and write an article about it and that's it. And even if Wukong did this, we know those audiences wouldn't even buy the games anyways. So ultimately, Wukong's devs clearly understand that they just need to cater to the actual paying customers, which, whether people want to admit it or not, is straight male players. For example, Capcom recently revealed the demographics of male versus female players, and the company was surprised to find that an overwhelming amount of their consumer base were actually men and not women. And in the same report, players confirmed that they value attractive characters and good gameplay over nonsense like identity politics. Which to a normal human being, all of this is common sense, but to the activists of the world, this is like a gunshot to their chest because it goes against everything they believe. Somebody should tell Alyssa Mercanti and Rebecca Valentine that the majority of gamers are still men. They will cry sexism and probably go cry in their apartments they share with 6 other roommates when they find out about this information. And it turns out IGN has been doing this for a little while now. For example, look back here in December 2023 where they reported on Wukong finally getting a release date. And look who wrote the article. Of course, it was Rebecca Valentine. She even put the sexism angle in the title of the article too. And here's what she says below. Game Science's unveiling of this trailer at the Game Awards, however, comes just weeks after our own reports compiling numerous sexist comments made by the studio's founders and other developers spanning the last decade. As we reported, these comments have sparked a growing backlash among Chinese gamers, particularly women and their allies, who find them demeaning and alienating, though a large contingent of other gamers have leaped to Game Science's defense in response. As a result, many of the videos, discussions, and communities growing around Black Myth Wukong have become spaces of ferocious debate, between women demanding apology and accountability and their detractors replying with sexism and cruelty. We reached out to Game Science for comment for our article at the time, but the studio has not addressed any of these remarks to us or anywhere else at this time. We also reached out to the Game Awards host Jeff Keighley for comment on the game's appearance at the Game Awards today, but did not hear back. Rebecca Valentine really tried to get the game or its devs cancelled by Jeff Keighley and the Game Awards because they didn't want to answer her moronic questions. She says women in gaming in China. Sure, Rebecca, we totally believe you in that regard. IGN did the same thing again earlier this month. As you can see here, this was made on June 8th, where they talk on how the Xbox versions of Wukong have been cancelled. Likely because Game Science knows Xbox users don't really buy their games these days, they just wait for stuff to come to Game Pass and that's it. This article wasn't written by Rebecca Valentine, but even then near the bottom, IGN brings up the claims of sexism anyway again. So it's clear that Rebecca Valentine has an agenda against Wukong and is not stopping it anytime soon. Let's hope she even reviews the game for IGN, because I'm sure that review won't be unbiased at all, right? Ultimately, what this is all proving is that when the Gamergate 2 thing started and Sweet Baby Inc. got targeted by the gaming fanbase and these journalists attempted to tell you that they weren't ruining your games, and then it turned out that they were all friends and in bed with one another, I want you to know it was all a lie. The game's journalists, they find a game, they write hit pieces targeting that game in hopes of causing the developer or publisher to become fearful of loss of investments or review scores if they don't cave in. Then they sent their consulting friends to infiltrate, completely changing the game from the inside out and getting paid millions in the process. The game comes out, it fails, and the studio goes under, only for the process to begin anew. These game journalists and these consulting firms are ruining games to extort money, fellas. It's really that simple. They hate each and every one of us for the simple reason that we're calling them out. And how many more studios and franchises need to die before the industry realizes that they're being taken for fools by crazy people who are selling their futures for personal gain? In the end, we all need to reject Sweet Baby and these activist journalists, always call them out and uproot this cancer before it kills everything. Black Myth Wukong will do gangbusters and good for them, but this won't be the last time this happens, dear viewer. Already, they're planning and getting their nasty tendrils on the next franchise or studio, hoping to bully them into submission too. So reject these projects, denounce Sweet Baby and others like them, and support the actual studios who don't hate you. We can win this, no matter how many heads this Hydra has. Trust me, I will keep swinging. As always, thank you for watching, subscribe, share, and like the video, and thanks to my patrons as well. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one.